Welcome to the Vets to PM Military Transition Academy podcast, the show where we discuss how to succeed in transitioning from the military service to the civilian workforce. This show and the academy it represents helps veterans transition into meaningful and lucrative post-service careers. Your hosts are Eric Doc Wright, veteran, founder of Vets to PM, author, and dedicated to strengthening America's workforce by helping it employ its military veterans. Jeremy Burdett, retired Air Force Chief and Chief Operating Officer of Vets to PM, who is tirelessly focused on helping fellow veterans translate the value they bring to the business world. Misty Marino, retired Air Force Senior Master Sergeant, Marketing Manager for Vets to PM, and HR leader who is focused on helping veterans live their best life after serving their country. On this podcast, we will interview veterans who are successful in corporate America and business to bring you nuggets of wisdom every episode to make you more successful. Welcome to the Military Transition Academy, sponsored by Vets to PM, where we help you achieve a meaningful and lucrative post-service career. And today we have a special guest, Roxy, and you might know her as your favorite Millennial Manager. And so if you follow TikTok or Instagram, I'm sure that you have seen Roxy in her work from home outfits and giving us, the scoop on what we need to do to establish our personal brand. So Roxy is going to be here today and share with you, the veteran community, how you can establish your personal brand so you can, in fact, achieve a meaningful and lucrative post-service career. Roxy, thank you so much for joining us. This is a pleasure. I'd love for you to introduce yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I am so excited for this conversation. And for if you have not seen my social media, Roxy Couse. I am a senior marketing leader. I've been working in corporate for well over a decade now, and I've done a number of different jobs. So I'm a marketer, I'm an e-commerce strategist, I UX design, I'm a content creator, storyteller, all of these things all wrapped into one. And I'm really excited to talk about this topic around personal branding and what it means and how do you get started and all of the things, because I think that's very important as we think about our careers and our path. But yeah, thanks for having me, Misty.
Yeah, and you said you're a storyteller, and that you are. And one of the biggest things that when us veterans separate or retire from the military, we're always told to craft our stories and, how can we translate our experience so it makes sense to the civilians. And we do that in the form of personal branding. So I'd love to pick your brain this podcast and just talk about what is personal branding and how can we do that. So according to you, 10 years in corporate, content creator, marketer, e-commerce, what is personal branding?
Yeah, so personal branding is one, it is not just your job. I think that that is so important to understand. So like I have for a long time I was in the habit of someone's like, tell me about yourself, and I'm like, well, this is my job title, but you're so much more than your job title. Your personal brand is all of those things that you are, that make up who you are. It's like it's how it helps you to show up more authentically when you can identify, okay, I'm not just a marketer, I'm a storyteller, I'm all of these other things. So it just encompasses everything you are, and that makes up your full brand. Even being a dog mom, like a part of
Yeah.
my personality is I have two dogs that I absolutely adore, and that's a part of my brand as well.
Yeah, and really what you're discussing is just the whole person concept. And so when we talk about the whole person concept in the military, that is something that we hear about from day one, basic training, boot camp, whatever service you go to. And it's about being this whole person, so personal and professional. But sometimes we forget like personal. And so what you're discussing when it comes to personal brand is who you are personally and professionally, and making sure that in some way, shape, or form, those are congruent because you're so much more than your job. And so if we were to start off with, so how do I identify, what I like, what I don't like, what would be some questions to ask ourselves?
Yeah, so some questions I would ask myself if I was just starting out building a personal brand. It's thinking about the foundation of your personal brand is like what do you like doing? I actually did a video on this, but like what do you like doing? What are you good at doing? Because honestly, what we like doing and what we're actually good at doing could be completely different things.
Yeah.
What could you talk about all day? That's another one of those things, like what I'm an expert at. Sometimes I don't want to talk about it. And I
Hmm.
can go deeper on that and how that my content journey has evolved because of that. But what are you a subject matter expert at based on your skill set, your trade, your schooling, higher education? And so all of these things, like once you answer all these things, there's it kind of like a Venn diagram almost. It's like,
Yep.
what am I good at doing? What do I like doing? And then in the middle, that is what we would call like your niche. Like, okay, so like if you were to start somewhere, where does all of those things that you just answered overlap? And that is something that you should be talking about. This is your personal brand. This is who you are. And that kind of sets that foundation of personal branding.
Yeah, and you say Venn diagram. You're speaking our language over here at Vets to PM. So we're project managers, so we know all about the Venn diagram. And landing in the middle is where we want to focus on, right? So if we're there,
Right.
that's where we want to focus on. So why personal brand? So, thinking of my story, 20 years serving in the military, and I get out of the military and I'm trying to secure, a post-service career. Why do you think I should be concerned with establishing a personal brand?
The opportunities that it open up, your personal brand, it's kind of like when someone says like your reputation precedes you.
Oh, so true.
That's what happens when you build a personal brand. So it's not just like I am Roxy Couse at this company, I'm a marketer here. Other people in the industry now know me as like a marketer as well. I posted a video about like how building a personal brand transformed my career. So for example, I was at the start of my career, I was an associate. I was on a team of other team members that were in the same role as me. We were piloting this software, for example, and I was the only one. I was like, okay, I see the potential of this. It was actually regarding AI. Like this was 10 years ago, and
Ooh,
we weren't even no one was
yeah.
talking about AI. It existed, but it wasn't a buzzword. And I was like, this is cool. I want to know more about this. And then I just kind of I started to learn more about the software. I connected with people at this organization down the road. It probably like 7 years or so down the road, there was an opportunity to go work for this company, and
Mm,
they hired me because I had built connections. I was networking. I understood the product. I was passionate about it. And you can kind of see like I was establishing myself as an expert in this area that I was in, but I took it a little bit further. Like, when everyone on the team was like, whatever, I don't want to add any more to my plate. I was like, oh, I'm going to embrace this. And that led to a job opportunity many years later. And I think that's really cool how that happens. Just a recent example, I've been posting on LinkedIn. I actually months ago I was like, I want to be a thought leader on LinkedIn. Here's the areas that I want to talk about that I'm
yeah.
passionate about. And randomly, a few months back, LinkedIn reached out and they're like, "Hey, we have this page called LinkedIn for Creators.
Yep.
We would love to partner for you to talk about like why it's important to post on LinkedIn and how you've gotten over this feeling of like being nervous about people seeing you, putting yourself out there." And I was like, "That's cool. That was an opportunity that was not there for me before." So yeah, you never know what it's going to
No.
unlock. And one of the things I always think about with a personal brand is like it doesn't matter what your passion area is, but when people think about that thing, like whatever it is,
Yeah.
you're top of mind because you have established yourself as an expert in whatever that area is.
Yeah, it's so true. And I post on my Facebook and my Instagram a lot about my workout journey. So not necessarily on LinkedIn, but Facebook and Instagram, I post all the time about going to F45 and, finding fitness after the military. And an athletic director, messaged me on Facebook. And of course I didn't see it because we're not connected, but I finally went to my other messages and I saw it. And he reached out and he's like, look, I'm I see your F45 posts all the time. It looks like you're really excited. I would love for us to discuss maybe a possible like, sports basics camp that you can put on for the young female athletes at this school. And I was like, I'm not certified, I'm not any of that, but that's an example of a personal brand. I've established myself as someone who loves to work out or someone
Mhm.
who, posts funny things about how the workout kicks my butt. And I've had people reach out to me. And so now we're kind of in a discussion on how to start this sports basic. It has nothing to do with my profession, has nothing to do with LinkedIn, but, establishing a personal brand is just, when I talk to the veteran community, it's just realizing that your veteran status is probably one of the least interesting things about you. Not, it doesn't mean that it's not interesting, but you are just so much more than, your veteran status. Speaking of LinkedIn, when we're retiring and separating from the military, we have this transition assistance program that we all go to. So all the services have their own sort of version of it, and we all go to. And it truly establishes the logistics of separating or retiring from the military, and then some additional things. And one of those additional things is getting on LinkedIn. And so I'd love, to hear from your perspective as a professional, and then obviously someone who just partnered with them. Why should we be on LinkedIn? People say, well, am I going to get a job? There's other reasons why we're there. Why should we involve ourselves in that platform?
Yeah, absolutely. So I personally love LinkedIn.
Me too.
And LinkedIn has definitely evolved over time where it was just about the job, finding a job and connecting with other people in the industry that you're looking to go into. But LinkedIn is it's almost like it's your personal profile, but there's so much that you can do there in terms of like research. I've used LinkedIn for, let's say, for example, well, actually, one of my career aspirations is to eventually be a CMO. And I'm looking at the experiences of people that are there, like what steps did they take? And another thing that I haven't talked about this yet, but you can almost get free mentoring. So, for example,
Yes.
I connected with, I've started following CMOs that I love that are in retail. Now I'm seeing like what posts are they commenting on? What are they
Mm,
liking? What are they engaging with? It's almost like free mentoring. Like this is top of mind for you. There are some people are very active. There's stats that say that like, LinkedIn is this huge growth opportunity because not a lot of people, like I think it was like 1% of people are actually like posting.
yep.
But there's so much information there that to support you in your career and your journey. And I guarantee there's someone like you out there that is or that is going through a similar thing or that is in the role or has the experience that you're looking to get. So like I would leverage it for that, like that free guidance, mentorship,
Mhm.
and then actually reach out, connect with people. It's amazing how willing people are to have a conversation, to do a coffee chat. I just think it's just a really great resource.
Yeah, and honestly, when it comes to LinkedIn, I was sourced from LinkedIn. So, if you think about most veterans, when they think of LinkedIn, they're like, how can I find a job? And ideally, you would like to be sourced from LinkedIn, but as the job market changes, recruiters don't really have to go too far to find people, right? Maybe they're looking for different talent, but LinkedIn is just so much more than, a job search, platform. You get to connect with maybe people that you've worked with before or that you want to work with. And for me, I have this sort of battle rhythm in the morning, but LinkedIn is where I sort of identify, like I find out like content things that I want to do, or, even business things. I'm marketing for Vets to PM. And so stuff like that. I mean, LinkedIn is just a resource for so many different things. And if you have LinkedIn Premium, there's LinkedIn learning classes, and there's
Mhm.
so many chats that you can, be a part of, and just the thought leaders as well. And the more and more you post, and the more you establish yourself as whatever industry expert or niche expert, then the more people will come to you. So,
Yeah, absolutely. And just I mean, it's kind of like a housekeeping thing, but like making sure your profile is completely filled out, like that you have a photo that your location is there. It's amazing the amount of job opportunities that are like connections that could come your way just from making sure that your profile is like completely done. You're
Yes.
about me, all of those things. It's like kind of like your walking resume or so I just think it's so important to also have like a really great profile.
Yeah, and it's a good opportunity to take the resume, which is probably 1 to 2 pages, very succinct, has only a few accomplishments, take that resume and now create a portfolio on LinkedIn.
Mhm.
So LinkedIn has so many options. Every job experience, you're able to post media. So that way you can send people to your work or put pictures. Like my husband and I did his LinkedIn, and he's aspiring to be a head coach of a high school football team. And so we filled out his, profile and put pictures and put his record and his training plans and links to this and that. And I mean, I go and I monitor the analytics all the time, and people are looking because that is really a walking and talking sort of representation of who you are, what you do, and the impact that you
Yeah,
have. And you don't have to be looking for a job in order to, get those job offers.
right. And the best time to find a job is when you already have one.
Absolutely. So, 10 years working in corporate, and we know that personal brand is important. Are there any mistakes that you see people making on LinkedIn or maybe in the office that, things that maybe we should try to warn veterans not to make?
So I would say one of the biggest mistakes that I see people making is not caring about their online presence.
Yeah.
Because one aspect of building a personal brand is maintaining an online presence. That's how you can scale your personal brand so more people know who you are. But it's also there's this misconception that by building a personal brand, you are signing up to be a social media star, and that's not necessarily the case at all. It's just about curating this, this image around yourself that becomes your brand. And so I just think that it's just so important to think of it that way and not like, oh, I don't want to be a social media star or a content creator, because that's not necessarily the goal of a personal brand. You want it to create opportunities for you. And that's just something to keep in mind.
Yeah, and just like social media in general, right? We have to be mindful that, whatever we put out there stays out there. So even if you delete it, right? And also
Mhm.
whatever you comment on, whatever you like, perception is reality, and we have to just unfortunately understand that, right? And so we have to establish these trends and patterns with our normal social media activity that hopefully if we like something that maybe someone else disagrees with, they're willing to have that conversation. But what we like, what we comment on could really impact, how people see us, and that could impact the opportunities that come to us.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And on the other side, so yes, it could paint things in a negative light, but it could
Yep.
also um paint your the perception of you in like a more positive like as well. So it's kind of like this like balancing act. And I just think that your online presence is so, like, you have to treat it like it's this precious things. Like, I want to maintain, I only want to be seen in the way that I want my brand to be perceived. Now people will perceive your brand in different ways.
Yep.
But it's just so important to like protect that, and think about like the things you comment on, or the things that you like, or the things that you share. But years ago, we didn't have to worry about like other people saying like what we shared or what we liked, but now it's this social experience to make sure everybody knows what everyone else cares about. And so we just have to be so cognizant of that. And there's like, I mean, for myself personally, who I've built a personal brand online. I don't engage as much as I like might have used to, because this isn't just Roxy, my social media. Like, this is it's almost, this is a brand, and I want to protect that brand.
Yeah, and I will say, especially now, we're in this crazy time, and we have a lot a lot going on in the world, and it's easy to get wrapped up in that. And it's good to have strong opinions and strong values and morals, but we also have to be mindful that the person sitting next to you in the cubicle, they are probably looking at your social media and what you comment on or what you like, or that could impact maybe how they work with you and how they collaborate with you. And just like what you said, I mean, I'm 46 years old, and I will tell you, I have a 17-year-old son, and I wish my son could go through his high school years without social media,
Yeah.
like go to the house parties and do all that stuff where no one could take pictures and it will impact the rest of your life. But we don't live in that world anymore. And so we have to understand that what we do and don't do is being watched and reviewed, and that could impact the opportunities that we have. And also, just like what you said, could impact your reputation, right? So
Right.
I mean, it's unfortunately your personality is who you are, but your reputation is how you're perceived. And what you do on social media is going to impact your reputation, whether it's positive or negative. So
Right. Right.
all right. So knowing our audience, I know that, you have a personal connection of veterans. You have a family member who's in the service. And I would love, for you to give some actionable tips to the person that's just kind of there, like, hey, I'm not a LinkedIn person. I don't like social media. What's this personal brand? Like, where can we start?
Yeah. So there are a few things that why building a personal brand has helped me. One, I have dealt with imposter syndrome, for example, like really good at my job. People were saying, like, you're an expert at this, but I didn't feel it. And building a personal brand can kind of help you get out of your own way a little bit, where you're now like establishing your expertise and putting something out into the world that is helping others. And sometimes in helping others, we also help ourselves.
Oh, reach
Uh,
it.
yeah, yeah. So I
Yeah.
feel like I think one, it's always important to keep your why in mind. So like if your North Star is I want this job, or I want to transition from the military into corporate, and I want to do this job here, keep that North Star in mind. And sometimes that can help you when you're feeling like, oh, this is, I don't really want to do this. Like, I'm embarrassed. Like, this is a waste of time. But when you have your North Star in mind, that can kind of like help you to get out of your way a lot, and just continue with the thing. And I think in building a personal brand, it's not about like, I wouldn't worry about like vanity metrics. Like, I don't have 500 followers on
Yeah.
LinkedIn, so like, or only one person has like engaged with my post, and maybe that one person is like your wife or like your mom. Like, it that does not matter as much. And actually there's this one, I don't know where I saw this post, but it's like, okay, what if your post got 100 views? Can you imagine being in a room with 100 people?
Yeah.
uh, that's a lot of people. So the
Yeah,
vanity
it's so
metric.
true.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Um, it is a strategy behind it too, but like when you do the work to like identify like where those things overlap that we just talked about,
Yep.
um, like what do you like doing? What can you talk about all day? What are you an expert at doing? And do that Venn diagram work, and just go for it. It's not going to be perfect, but you start to establish like how you want to show up, and yeah, you just learn as you grow.
Yeah. And you'll change too. So like when
Yeah.
veterans separate and retire, like, I've been out of the military for almost 5 years, and I'm 100% a different person. And that's
Mhm.
supposed to happen. You're supposed to grow and develop. And so when, vets to PM, we have this career transition workbook. And some of the questions that we ask is like, think back to your military career. What were the things that you really liked doing? Like what jobs, and most veterans will tell me like when I was with the people, and as I progressed in leadership, I mean, I hated sitting in the office, like put me back in the people. But what did you like doing? Okay, what were the jobs that you really didn't like doing? What is the lifestyle that you want to create for your next career? So for me, it was like never to work shift work again. I want a normal 8 to 5 schedule so I can have normal sleeping hours and be with my kids. So it's really identifying those things. And then if you are in the job search, one thing that I was told by someone on LinkedIn, Lori Norris. So Lori Norris and I first connected with her when I was still in the service. She was like an informational interview, one of my first ones that I've ever had. And she said, if you want to translate your transferable skill sets, you need to post about it. And I was like, how do I do that? Well, we were going through COVID in the Air Force, and part of human resources, with safety, we were doing a lot of those protocols. And she said, that's great. Talk about that, but take out Air Force, take out military, and translate it so everyone and anyone can understand. And I had HR managers reaching out saying, oh, do you have a template for that? Whatever. And that's when I realized, like, that's what we do. We need to take our transferable skill sets and post it or talk about it on social via stories, just like what you said, so people can understand where we're coming from and how valuable we actually are.
Hmm. And sometimes you do have to, before people can care or will care, they have to know like who you are. I actually recently just talked to someone. He's been working in corporate for a while. We actually worked together a while back at the same company, but we didn't really interact that much. But he was like, no one in corporate talks about growing up like poor, for example, like or like growing up without like didn't have like family members in corporate, or like you're the first generation. Being authentic and relatable is a good thing, and we've been conditioned to think that it's not. So those things are like, you might think like no one cares, but like your story, I guarantee someone else wants to hear that story because it is relatable to them, and they've just been waiting for someone else to tell it. And then when I think about transferable skills, like if you look at a job description, for example, and maybe you've never worked in like a corporate space, or you're going for a job where you're like, I'm not qualified, and they say like effective communication or storytelling and something like that. you I think it's important to think back about like all of the experiences that you've had.
Yeah.
We have been conditioned, for example, to be effective communicators. Think about like you played a sport, and one of the things like they always, regardless of sport, they're like, you're on the field, talk to your team members, like where are you, call for the ball, like all of these
Yep.
things. And it's like you were being conditioned to be an effective communicator. So it's all of these experiences and things that you've had in your life that will help you land the job. And I think that is so important to think about as we think about transferable skills.
Yeah, and also, like, think about, I just talked to someone and she is a roller derby
Oh
professional. Have
yeah.
you ever heard? Yeah. So
Uh-huh.
we were talking and she was like, okay, so how do I post about this and whatever? And I was like, in my mind, I was like, I have no idea. So I kind of went through some questions, but just like what you said, I'm like, take me through roller derby, right? And she did. And so she's been doing this sort of 30-day sort social media experience, experiment. And she already has like 25,000 followers. And just like you said, those are vanity metrics, but that just goes to show that a roller derby professional is relevant. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? So we all have these different interests. I mean, look at the book talk right now, like book talk is having a moment,
Yeah.
right? So is work from home, corporate creators, they're having a moment. Veterans, we're having a moment too. So, don't discount like who you are or who you truly are. And one thing that sort of spoke to me, what you just said is, in the military, obviously in the military, we're signing a contract that we're going to, defend the Constitution of the United States, and that every time we put a uniform on, we agree to die for our country. And that's really what the contract says. That's the oath. That's it. And so we start thinking that who we are sometimes is not important enough, right? It's
Mhm.
and when we do separate and retire, now is our opportunity to truly identify who we are and what we want to do. And, do we want to be a part of something bigger, or do we want to just be a part of our family's lives? So it's a great opportunity to sort of reinvent yourself. And like I always say, do you, boo?
Yeah. And it's also kind of scary too, because most spaces that we walk into, like we didn't create, like we stepped into rooms that already existed for us. And so there is this level of like vulnerability to thinking about like I'm my personal brand. One of the first times that I really felt like, oh shoot, like I done the thing was there are people that don't know that I work in corporate. They don't know that my job has been my entire identity for most of my like for the
Yep.
last 10 or so years. And when you can walk into a room and people know you for something other than what they've known you, what historically people would have known
Yeah.
you before. I just think it's so powerful. And that's like a really cool feeling to know that like you're a movement, like by yourself, you've done this thing. And I just think it's so worth to do the work to identify how you want to show up outside of the career that you've had for a majority of your life or a majority of your time, I guess.
Yeah. And one thing I always say to veterans is we cannot serve past 30 years. So think about it. If you serve the max amount of time, 30 years, I pray that you're going to have another 30 plus years to live. So therefore, you are going to be in veteran status more than you were in active duty status. And
Mhm.
so who you are out of the uniform is going to be, for a longer duration. And so, you can start while serving in the military, discovering who you are and what you like to do, and and identify your personal brand there. And then when you separate, then you can expand on it. And that's for everyone, like in corporate too. Like I love how you just said your whole job was like your job was your whole personality until just a little bit ago. And that's awesome, because that happens in the civilian sector too. It's like we become too much of our job and not enough of ourselves. So
Mhm.
so Roxy, as we close up, this discussion is perfect for the veteran community. Any last rounds, any tips and tools for those who are just trying to get started identifying who they are out of their uniform?
Yeah, I would just say just go for it. And in understanding your North Star also means knowing that there are people that are going to be naysayers or they're going to question what you're doing or cringe at what you're doing, share what you're doing with others, and you just have to keep going. And yeah, that's how you're going to create your own opportunities and build this personal brand that exceeds even your far as your wildest imagination of what you thought it could be. So, and I'm rooting for
Yep.
you.
That's awesome. And I had a mentor one time. Her name is Josephine Davis Fogel. And she told me, if you don't romance me or finance me, you don't get input into what I do. You can watch from aside, from afar, and she said, and if you still watch, then that means you like what I do. So
Right.
all right. Well, thank you so much. Where can our audience find you? And I will tell you that, I found you a little bit more than a year ago, and I've absolutely loved all of your series. And you have, transformed as well, from showing your outfits and your walk from your kitchen to your work from home office, and to now where you're sharing love letters and all these, such great brand deals that are done so authentic, like so authentically. Like honestly, you should teach a class on how to do brand deals. And I mean that, because especially the recent one you did, I was like, wow, she nailed that, because some of them are just overly curated, but when I watch your brand deals, they're so you. And that's the point of personal brand, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like to show up as you are,
Yeah.
regardless of the setting that you're in. But you can find me on TikTok or Instagram at Roxy Couse. I'm also on LinkedIn, Roxy Couse there as well. And yeah, like to your point, I've continued to just reinvent. You have to be willing to reinvent yourself and to just keep going down the path. But yeah, it was great to chat
Absolutely.
with you today, Missy.
Yeah, thanks so much. And for everyone that's listening, at Vets to PM, we help you identify your transferable skill sets, help you validate it in a way where people will understand the civilian sector, and connect you with employers that want to hire you because they know your unique value add. It all starts with what you do now to prepare for tomorrow. And one of those things that you can do is establish your personal brand. So find Roxy so she can help you do that. Take care. Thank you for tuning in and spending a bit of time with us at the Military Transition Academy, powered by Vets to PM. If we piqued your interest but you want more details, please head over to the website at vets2pm.com and see if we can help prepare you for a better tomorrow or a future meaningful, lucrative post-service career.